Welcome you to this month's meeting of Council. A special meeting, yeah. The recording of this special Council meeting will be available on to the public on the Council's website for a minimum period of 6 months. In accordance with Council policy, I will now ask staff to confirm that the recording has commenced. We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the South East Nation, the Malakadee people of the Yuin River and the Lilaquani people of the Far South. We recognise their continuing connection to land, water and culture. We pay our respects to their elders past, present. Now we have Councillor Thorpe, Councillor Armstrong, Councillor Jessup. We have Councillor Burgess on the road. He will be here soon. We have Councillor Gibson, Councillor O'Neill, Councillor Camber-Smith and Councillor Robertson. Would you like to introduce your staff, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Tonight we have Lyle Ground, Acting Director of Community Wellbeing, Matthew Grimsey, Director of Sustainable Governance, Strategy and Sustainable Development. Sorry, apologies. And we have our new Director of Infrastructure, Frank Chen. So welcome, Frank. We've also got Manager of Finance, Tracy Hankin, standing in for Paddy Johnson, who's away unwell tonight. And we have support staff, Kelly Davis and Sandy Rusdell.
Thank you. And welcome, Frank. Apologies, there's no apologies. Is there no leave of absence? And there's no absent. Is there any councillors that wish to declare an interest in tonight's agenda? No, ma'am. Okay. Well, we go straight through to 15.1. Review of rates and charges policy, Government FIN 005, report number 15.018/24. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Camber-Smith and a seconder, Councillor Armstrong. Councillor Camber-Smith, would you like to speak to?
I just had a couple of questions, actually.
That's fine.
I just wondered where the definition of charitable purposes came from. Is there a sort of standard definition somewhere? And also, I was slightly puzzled about the remission for jetties, slipways and boat sheds, if you wouldn't mind just explaining that.
Thank you.
Through you, Mayor, I can take the first question. It's a legal definition which goes back to Elizabethan statute a long way time ago. So that's how the courts define charitable purpose.
And the other one was referring to the jetties?
Yeah, I didn't quite understand why there was a remission for jetties, slipways and boat sheds, given that presumably the owners of them do actually have a benefit from them.
Can you, through to you.
I'd be happy to take that one.
Thank you, Tracy.
This works. The reasoning behind it is that generally it's just the slip of land that leads from the road to the jetty. So it's a very small parcel of land, and often those people are also ratepayers, so it just seemed bit excessive to charge a full minimum rate on that piece of land.
Thank you. Do I have, yes, Councillor Gibson?
I also just had a question around the late payment and wondering whether, because I think it's 3% immediately upon being late, and I wondered whether it should be after a reminder notice has been sent out. I know in practice it doesn't, but I understand in practice it's not immediately triggered, but the policy says that that's
what it does. Okay, can I pass that through to Tracy, if I may?
I'm actually not. I might take that one on notice if that's okay. Thank you.
Yep. No problems. Any others? No? Okay. Want to close? Councillor Cam-Smith?
No, thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
Otherwise, yeah.
Well, I'll put, oh,
Sorry, this is 15.1.
yes, yes.
Is this the right time? Is this the right time for me to ask that question about funding to tourism groups
No.
In the budget.
in the budget? That's what I
Yeah.
said.
Thank you. All right. Well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. And the motion is carried. (15.019/24) Adoption of the Yuan Valley Council Term Plan 23 to 27 and Annual Plan 24 to 25. I refer the councillors to the recommendation. Do I have a councillor to move the motion, please? Yep, Councillor Armstrong and a seconder. Councillor Gibson. Do you wish to speak to this, Councillor Armstrong? No? Do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Robertson?
I looked at the term and annual plans, and I particularly looked at them in light of...
Microphone, Amy, please.
I looked at the term and annual plans,
Yep.
and I looked at them in particular in light of the budget item which is coming up and some difficult decisions there. Because this I see as the avenue where we provide accountability for our budget decisions and some of those difficult decisions. And I was relatively happy that a lot of those, I had a query about whether operational, business as usual aspects are captured in those plans, and I was reasonably satisfied that they were. The one thing I did have a query or perhaps a constructive change about would be to add a measure, I think they're called goals, in the plan build item in the annual plan, which is 5.2.2.1, proposing that we set a goal of a maximum of DAs in progress at 25% of the annual volume of DAs. I've spoken about this issue before within council, and I'm concerned that we don't set ourselves up with a backlog, or if you look at those tasks as being a potential liability, given people pay an application fee and the task then sits in our court for a period of time. It's in our interest to get that work done, noting that there was, I think, about $100 million worth of development per annum that's facilitated by this. So that then potentially means that we're holding up or we're holding as in progress applications for 25 million at a time. It's in our interest to cap that and try and work that down. So I've proposed a maximum 25% of annual volume for that.
Okay. Does that need to come through as a... can that be...
Through you, Mayor, if the councillors are generally in agreement, we can note that, the CEO can note that.
Yep.
In the minutes, it would make that as an amendment.
Okay, can I have a show of hands at just if we agree with Amy's amendment to the document? Yep. Okay, if you're happy with that, Amy, we'll pass that through and that'll be...
Through you, Mayor, I think, Amy, Councillor, you've done some good background research on it, and I think it makes entire sense to do it. There's obviously some, we can report that number, and there's obviously some nuance around what applications are current, but outside of our remit to keep progressing. They're out on RFI for extended reasons. There's all manner of things, and I think that understand the intent, understand the interest, totally share it, and I think we'll, within that number, we'll seek to break that down to explain what's going on beneath that. Yeah, look, it's a good suggestion. I appreciate the effort behind it.
Yes, Councillor Jessup.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, both documents, the both planning documents are useful documents to have, but I suppose I have two questions, a little bit related to what Councillor Robinson was saying, is what some of the KPIs or performance indicators are a bit general. So I suppose the two questions for me is, how are all of these key actions now taken into business planning within the operations of council? And then how are we proposing that we get something reported back on a regular basis? And I don't, no offence to the CEO, but having stuff embedded in the middle of a CEO's report is hard to follow. So is there some thought to maybe having a traffic light sort of indicator of where we're at for things? The advantage of that is twofold. One, it makes you set regular benchmarks to achieve, and secondly, for us, it then allows us to have a conversation with staff around, well, do we need more resourcing or less resourcing, or are we too ambitious? Or, yeah, it's sort of a general question, Mayor.
Would you like to answer that one?
A general answer.
Sure. And I missed the start of it dealing with a technical problem, but I'll have a crack, because I think generally what you're describing, the adequacy of our reporting at the moment isn't great, and what we're trying to adopt, and under this new structure, moving to having our, not reporting for reporting's sake, but the reporting that we do internally needs to improve for our, say, project management, capital works in progress, all that kind of stuff. We will be adopting internally traffic light system, regular engagement with ELT as a steering committee of all projects, and engaging with the managers who are leading those, and the output documents that they use in an operational sense should be the same document that gets reported through monthly to councillors to keep track of all the projects we're doing.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Campbell-Smith.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I did note in my responses and comments to the draft annual plan that I'd like to see a lot more indicators that are more related to things that actually matter to community, sort of well-being and livability indicators. I note that they're not, or a few of those have been included at this stage, but I'd really like to see that as we develop our wellbeing and livability strategy, that we do actually get some more meaningful indicators in there. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm sure that will, once the restructure has, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, notwithstanding restructure, that's right, we need to find KPIs that are meaningful and relevant, and obviously you do need to actually invest in the systems to be able to track those KPIs. So working out what is meaningful, and where that investment in understanding our how we're tracking is something that we'll do over the next year, so that we keep developing the adequacy of our KPIs, and as quickly as possible. I mean, the important thing is we don't keep chopping and changing. We start setting baselines that are consistent into the future.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Robinson, did you have your hand up before?
I was going to make a cheeky comment about the southernmost traffic lights in Australia, but I don't think that's necessary. Love a good traffic light system.
Okay. Do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. I just think, pretty much following up what Councillor Campbell-Smith, I was going to say Jenny. I agree with what everybody said. I'd really like to see this, when it's written and when it's explained, I would like people to be able to actually understand what it means. Because, quite frankly, if I was reading this and I wasn't on council, I wouldn't have a clue. You know, they're not words that trigger meanings for most of the people. They would be expecting to see, you know, specific words, specific details. They would want to know exactly what's going on. This all sounds very like, yeah, this is what we're going to do, but we're going to do it in 10 years. You know, I struggled reading these sorts of things and understanding them until I really started applying myself. So if we're going to spend so much money and we're going to spend so much time in this amazing resource that we've got hold of, then we need to make it so that people can read it, even in a summary form, I think. And I've mentioned this before as well. So I think if we could just keep an eye on how we present it to people so they can actually understand it, that would be good.
Well, look, thanks for the comment, and we'll take that on board. I think a key part of the reason why we've actually inserting a term plan, the 4-year plan in between, is because there is an imbalance between a strategic plan, very high level, hard to grasp, hard to understand when is that going to occur. And if you look at our old annual plans, they then were a little bit over-egged with a whole bunch of, they were difficult to understand. Well, what are you doing in just this annual period? We're trying to meet everything. The term plan inserts itself in between in saying what this council's ambition, this elected term, what our ambition is. So it's that micro strategic plan. It's a way for us to interpret between the two, and it does mean that the annual plan itself becomes much more just action-based, specific action of what we are doing in this next 12 months. So we're heading in that direction, but I think that we are, as the organisation matures, and again under restructure, we are putting more effort into this space. All ears for how we can make this more legible and get people more engaged with what we're doing, because we do a lot of stuff.
Thank you. Yes, we do. And like, it's absolutely appreciated, and I really understand the workload, you know, from everyone that's involved in council, employees and whatnot. But I do think we need to sort of try and present this in terms that people understand at the end of the process, perhaps. You know, there's a lot of people that see a lot of money going into council and coming out of council, and they read a lot of things on paper, but they don't actually know what it means. And I think we need to show them, you know, because we have gone through this long process. Thank you.
Okay, do I have any other? Do you want to close, Councillor Armstrong? No? Okay, well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all, council, and the motion is carried. Report number 16.012/24, adoption of the long-term financial plan. I refer councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move a motion? Councillor Jessup and a seconder, Councillor O'Neill. Do you wish to speak to this or have a question for this?
No, just briefly, Mayor. We put a lot of work into this last year and made a pretty hard decision around a rate rise, but we did foreshadow to the community that a future pathway for rates, and I think it's to the credit of council staff that we came in under budget this year. Bit of good fortune, bit of good luck, bit of good management, but also that we have tried to recognise the economic hardship of the community, and I know we've spent a couple of meetings cutting and dicing and trying to work out different ways to do this. And I think this brings up a balance between a slightly lower rate increase, but allowing us to get on with the stuff that the community wants us to do, like fixing culverts and roads and all those sort of things. So just like to congratulate Paddy, who's not here, and obviously Teresa, who did all the work, obviously, but congratulate them for the hard work that they've put into it. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Do I have any other questions in this section? Or no? Oh yes, Councillor Campbell-Smith.
Yeah, and just briefly, I'm pleased that we, have been able to make some changes to our rating categories, and I guess this is more relevant when we come onto the budget and estimates and the rating policy for this year. But you know, definitely just want to reiterate that I would like to see more rating sophistication in the coming years. And I think that, you know, that's hopefully promised as part of the conversations with the Valuer General and stuff. And also perhaps a more sort of mature long-term asset management profile, you know, in terms of our reserves, exactly whether we do, you know, need them 10, 15, 20 years down the track. I know it's not an easy task, but thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Councillor Robertson?
I'd just make the observation that this long-term financial plan's about viability, and a really key principle in it is about that if we don't pay or invest now, then we incur greater cost in the future, the nearer or the more distant future. So it's about, Councillor Chambers-Smith used the word mature.
Yeah.
So it's about considering those trade-offs and trying to be wiser to invest and do the tasks that council needs to do most efficiently.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Joseph.
I do have a question I thought I'd ask later, and it sort of relates to what Councillor Chambers-Smith was saying. So page 27 shows a linear graph of cash and equivalents, our reserves increasing from 15 million now up to 40 million. I know that's a graph that a lot of people see and they go, what do you need a piggy bank that size for? Yeah, I'm a great believer that our generation shouldn't be leaving debt to future generations. The concept of intergenerational debt is very easy for governments to just go, oh, bugger it, we'll spend today and let somebody else deal with it. But I know when we were talking about this in the workshop, and this is really giving you a chance maybe to highlight some of those things, but we were talking about things like there are some big bridge costs that we don't know exactly what they are yet because the bridges haven't got to a point where they need to be assayed. But we know that they're coming in the next 4 or 5 years. Could you maybe give us a bit of an overview of what...
Yeah.
That straight line will not be straight forever. We'll start spending some of it, I suppose.
No. It's obviously our confidence in that line decreases the longer out it gets. And to refer to Councillor Chambers-Smith's or Robertson's comments before around asset maturity of our asset management, you know, Frank's, you know, the number one priority that I've given him is exactly that, to understand what our asset management goals and needs actually are. That is the number one thing that will start to affect that line and give us confidence in where we're spending. And you're right, what was shared with you in workshops is it's the known as yet not fully quantified what the cost will be and where the priorities will sit. But we know that we have an expensive and relatively new bridge assets that are going to need replacement. We've also got a extensive ageing stormwater network that is also going to have significant cost that will be incurred in this 10-year term. So they're just two examples of why we need cash reserves to handle those known but as yet not fully realised what the cost will be.
Okay. Okay. Do I have any other? No? Do you wish to close, Councillor Jess? Okay, well, I'll put that motion. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors, and the motion is carried. Report number 16.013/24, adoption of the 2024/25 budget estimates and rates and charges. I refer the councillors to the recommendation of this report. Do I have a councillor to move the motion? Councillor Chambers-Smith, and seconder, Councillor Gibson, and Councillor Burgess has just entered the room. Thank you. Councillor Campbell-Smith, would you like to open with this? You have a question or is... No?
Just briefly, thank you. People reading this will obviously realise we have attempted to make some changes to our rating here, in that we've increased the minimum rate and attempted to spread or at least make a start on spreading the rating burden more fairly, and very much hope that we can, continue to do that, such that, the rate that one pays really does have some connection to the means to pay, which is, one of the reasons that capital value is used to generate the rates. The only other, oh no, sorry, that's for the next item, so otherwise fine, thank you.
Okay, do I have any other? Yes, Councillor Robinson?
An input to these budget figures are obviously the restructuring of council positions. And I have great sympathy for people enduring a restructure. I've had a few in my time and they haven't always ended nicely for me. But, and I mentioned the long-term financial plan premises of viability. And I also want to mention that I think in every workshop where we've discussed this budget, the hardship policy has been raised and mentioned. And that's a key aspect of what I recognise is a significant rate rise of 7%, and a really substantial lift to the minimum rate. Now as councillors, we've received a fair bit of communication in the past few days from sectors including tourism and the arts, cultural heritage. I take a view that tourism succeeds when the fundamental place is great. And looking at council's budget, I see it investing really heavily in making this place great, in making sure that the roads we use to get here and move around on are safe, that we have great facilities around our communities, whether it's the toilet block or the parks. So that makes sense to me. Equally, economic development, I think, succeeds when your strategy and your inputs to that are set well. I don't know that we've necessarily done the best job on that in recent years. And that's not said for criticism. It's worth understanding where your weaknesses are opportunities. How can we do better at this? But I know our community went through an extended and painful draft LPS saga. We've seen infrastructure such as our local abattoir close. And we've got a substantial pile of DAs to work through. And I hear stories of situations where people build first and ask forgiveness later, and that's not okay if we're supporting our economic development well. So I think there are opportunities. I think this budget and the principles underlying it aim to address those challenges. And I mentioned that I'm reasonably happy at the goals specified in the annual plan, particularly, to account for those. I think that's a really important role for this set of councillors to set that. I talked about viability, so the thing I'll finish on is that we do have a really diverse community, and we have a lot of people who are doing it tough at the moment. So as we look at that rate rise, it's worth us remembering that while every extra percentage we add to our rates generates about $160,000 of income revenue back to council. So that can be used more for council's work. And that might, I don't know, what's 1% of your rates? Is it $15 a year for each family? Maybe it doesn't seem much, but everything counts at the moment for some people. So seeing this worked through to deliver a general rate increase of 7% rather than the 8% that was originally forecast, I think is a result that's heading in the right direction. And thanks to staff for pretty extensive work on developing this budget.
Thank you. Okay, do I have, yes, Councillor Jessup.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, before I get told off for not doing my phone. Look, I know there's some things that the public will look at, and obviously the budget's already out now by $100,000 because I think the Port Huon pool, we're hopefully going to get some government money to do that $100,000. So I suppose the reality is that we know budgets are, they start off correct, but very quickly they're not. But and I know there'll be a lot of community interest in the large wages increase, but again, to remind people listening that 70% of that's kids' services, which is cost neutral, if not cost positive, is a massive need that the community keeps telling us they want us to provide, from that perspective, I move on now, I suppose, to the point that we have made a number of people positions redundant and terminated a number of people through that process. And look, as said by Amy, I think all our hearts go out to those people. They're all good people. They're all doing a good job, but were they necessarily doing the job that the community needed or wanted? So that's always really hard. And I wish all of those people luck, and I know that we're giving them support moving on. But the economic development unit was one that I really did struggle with a bit, because I think, I've been quite proud that the council has had that unit and has had that investment. But again, as said by others, the $250,000 or so that would cost as a minimum in straight, wages, when you trade that off against the rate increase that we'd have to do to maintain that, because I think it was important to get down to a break-even budget. So I accept that. But I really hope that we are able to keep going some of the work that we have done, and over time in different economic conditions, I think there are community connector type roles and stuff that I hope we would revisit to look at and to support some of those groups. But I know one area where, again, we've been quite proud as a council that we've got a very vibrant tourism sector in the valley, and I think that they have are probably most concerned about the loss of the economic development unit, that they have felt that they've actually had some really good value out of that, and I think that's true. And I suppose, again, in closed council, we did talk about some of the things that we might put in place to mitigate that, and I think on page 144 it was, I think, we did say that determine that functions can be better delivered by way of facilitation and building of key relationships with local businesses, state, federal governments, etc., etc. So I suppose, just if possible, can maybe just for the community and for the tourism sector, if we can highlight some of the things that we were talking about putting in place, and I don't know if they've firmed up yet, but more sort of share some of your thinking, because I clearly we need to meet with that sector and those industry groups, but they certainly weren't forgotten in our decision making, and that's pretty important to stress, I think. So I don't know if you could, Mayor, possibly outline a couple of things we were talking about.
Well, we definitely will, but I mean, no conversations could be had until after today, because we're still, decisions were not final.
So I suppose what you're saying is, to some extent, we need to shape what we're going to put in place after consultation.
Yeah.
That's
But there were
correct.
some big picture stuff that we can maybe put out as a...
Yeah, look, through you, Mayor. So spot on. We've got we're arranging meetings and have other meetings in place already to consult with those chiefly impacted stakeholder groups in the community. And I echo all your thoughts about the value that they've received from economic development over time. And that's not lost on us, and we have discussed it at length. We are looking to do things differently. We are, from a brand sense, looking to move into a brand maintenance space because we've developed a brand that is, look, a standout amongst our peers. A huge amount of investment. A great brand that attracts people. So we need to work out how we maintain that brand and how the industry will get the maximum value out of that. So the point of engaging with them is to shape that, and then to shape our response as we move more into brand maintenance. Means things like getting more in line with Tourism Tasmania, with Destination Southern Tasmania, leveraging the multi-million-dollar investments that are being made at a state level to attract people. And we know from all the research that Tourism Tasmania generate that tourists are attracted to Tasmania for Tasmania. The Huon Valley is a recognised brand, but we really need to get behind that larger effort and start amplifying things like Come Down for Air, anything wrapped around Mona and some of those other big attractors, and leverage those opportunities. So we'll be working with those interested stakeholder groups, work out what value looks like to them, what we can do. Yes, resetting expectations, because we aren't going to be doing things in the same way. And similarly, we need to be working more with the general business community, who also have a whole bunch of needs and requirements, and looking at how council can actually impact, as Councillor Robinson was saying before, and create a great valley, a great place. That's the product that people are coming down for, and that's where I want to invest. And we know that one of the best, or our main lever to do that, is through land use planning, and finding ways to promote development through having a streamlined planning process, through actually assisting with planning for current gaps in the economy. How do we make sure that we can provide affordable housing for employees in the service sector, for example? These are the things that generate a great place and make us viable. So we'll be doing that. The other component is that we've done in the past is a pretty significant amount of small business support, particularly in that tourism sector, direct facilitation. There's a huge amount, and I recently attended a DST event aimed at tourism businesses in the Huon Valley, where the Department of State Growth aligned providers were there demonstrating the amazing array of business support services, from online literacy to help market your business directly yourself, through to financial management, through to really interesting concepts around recognising that an entire community should be brand ambassadors, and work they've done in whole communities, say all of Cygnet, from everyone from the service station owner through to the IGA. They're the people that are seeing our tourists need to be promoting, what's what. So these opportunities exist. Again, they're available through the state government, who are highly resourced to provide it and fully geared up to do it. And we are going to be looking to, in a more of a facilitation role, as opposed to trying to replicate what is available in other areas. But first and foremost, we're going to listen and hear what the concerns are around changing the way we work. And then adapt so that we can meet those meters, provide as much value as we possibly can to these impacted sectors.
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Gibson.
Well, as you know, I've spoken very strongly about keeping the funding for the arts and for economic development in workshops and previous meetings, because they are so incredibly important for building community resilience and cohesion. That said, I do accept the reality of competing budget demands and keeping rates down. We can't do everything, and we've now got a climate change officer, which is fantastic. So things change, and we appointed our CEO because we wanted things to happen. We wanted a restructure and we wanted these things. So I can see a huge amount of work that's been done behind all of this with Lockie and the team, and trying to grapple with what is a complex future. So Lockie's very convincing that we can do things a different way, and so I've decided to support and watch closely how this unfolds. The sad part is the people feeling that their work has not been valued, and I really want to state very strongly that that's not the case. The work is very, very valued, and it's been excellent, and it will stand us in good stead, as our CEO has just said. He's got a different vision for how council can do this work, and has assured us that there won't be a loss of outcomes, which is excellent. I would actually like to amend the motion to include that point, which actually turns up in the closed council, to just have that the CEO commits to ongoing engagement with relevant stakeholders to ensure that the new operating model does not result in declining artistic or economic outcomes in the Huon Valley.
Mayor, do you have that electronically?
Yes. It's the same wording as is it actually in point 11 in closed.
Okay, does Councillor Gibson have a seconder to that? Yep. Councillor Camber-Smith. Thanks, Sandy. Can you accept it? Yeah, okay.
Yes. The CEO commits to ongoing engagement with relevant stakeholders to ensure that the new operating model does not result in declining artistic or economic outcomes in the Huon Valley.
That was actually Councillor Camber-Smith that moved that one.
Did I? Was it? I thought I moved it. No, I moved the other one. Sorry, Jen.
Yep. Thank you.
Jen?
Yeah, I thought I was right.
And
Yeah.
I seconded it.
Okay, yeah, you did, yes.
So I
Okay,
accepted as well.
yep, okay. You're right with that then?
Did that come through?
Paragraph E.
Yep, paragraph E. Right, okay.
I think it would reassure people who are worried out there.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Yes, Councillor Camber-Smith?
Thank you. Yeah, I realise that the questions I had are actually relevant to this particular thing. I mean, firstly, just to acknowledge what others are saying about the enormous contribution of, that's been made by the people that we are sadly saying goodbye to, and there's absolutely no reflection on their skill, talent, and contribution. But there is, all the increasing pressures on council where we can, being able to move to more of a facilitating and advocacy and partnering model, where other specialist agencies and pathways exist to be done, that can be done more efficiently, is the way to go, I think, in order to outside. Sorry. And I did write back to all the people that emailed us, just briefly saying that I believed that they would be spoken to, considering that if these motions were passed by councillors. The only other thing I was going to say is when we send out our rates notices, if we could please include about the pensioner, information about the pensioner rebate and the hardship policy. I think we did do that last year, because that pensioner rebate's not always well known by people who are on low income cards can actually get, I think, 30% rebate on their. I think people get confused by the word pensioner. They think they have to be over 65 or something. It certainly confused me originally, but it'd be nice to put that information out there.
Through you, CEO, do we have that information already? Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, we do.
Yes. And I would like to see, and I know there was so much going on this year that we have been sort of late in the financial year, getting all the information to councillors, and this is the first that the community have seen really of the budget, and it would be nice, I think, to try and undertake some form of consultation next year on what the budget looks like and what people's priorities are, because we did talk about that last year, but
Yeah, I
we
see what
couldn't.
you mean.
There was just too much happening this
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And maybe perhaps these community forums that we've spoken about
Yes.
could be one vehicle for doing that.
Correct. Yes.
And the only other thing is, with respect to the budgeted 300k deficit on the medical centres, given that the state government and Councillor Thorpe touched on this as well in a recent workshop, given that state government has stepped in quite a few times recently to help, whether we shouldn't be making a much stronger appeal to the state government to assist us in being provider of last resort.
I can assure you we
Yeah.
are.
Good. Okay.
Every waking minute, really. At the moment, we are definitely putting that case forward that we believe, why do you want to wait until something's broken
Well,
to give it,
Yeah.
to have to give it a lot of money,
It's annoying
which is
that-
what they're doing,
Yeah.
compared to a small amount of money that we're asking, that we're not even, I mean, it's there in the budget. We, we could go through and not have to use it, but it's that burden that we have to have there.
Yeah.
And it's a very small amount of money considering, really, for them to be able to do that for us. That's correct.
Yeah, if I can just add, the Mayor and myself have recently had really engaged conversations with Franklin MPs from across the party divides, and we've really appreciated their time, and I think they've appreciated the time we've taken to bring issues like this to their attention. And one of them actually observed that we'd spent an hour of time talking with her about issues of great concern to the community that were all issues that aren't actually council's primary responsibility, which is an ongoing problem. But we know from our community vision and what drives people, and if we go back to economic development, what makes people want to come and visit and live in a place, they need housing security, and they need jobs, they need childcare, they need, etc. And many of those they just sit outside of council's remit. But our remit is to advocate for our community and advocate for their wellbeing. We're doing that strongly, and I'd just add that so we will be, through these state MP conversations, we're using that to help get Gunner support, because ultimately health is a federal responsibility, and so we're building up that position to seek some greater federal support. Julie Collins has been fantastic, provides a huge amount of support and assistance for us, so we'll continue that. But it's been the Mayor's sort of number one piece at the moment, and whilst we have had this is a responsible budget, and we're reflecting the risk to the organisation of variability. When we have a GP crisis, whilst we are managing that service way better than it has been done in the past, and I will remain hopeful that we do better than that. That is our risk position, and as we've explained to the MPs we've been meeting with, it is impossible for a council of our size, with a budget of our size, to carry a cost of a risk that is that high. 3% odd of rates in just unknown variability due to a national GP crisis.
And which is paid
by the general
paid
rate.
for by all the community.
Correct, correct. So it's an incredible burden on council that when it's not a direct responsibility of local government, but in this space it's pivotal. It's a pivotal need for the community, which is why we're doing it. And yeah, the Mayor and myself are advocating very hard, and underpinning it is the work that Lyle's team are doing in medical services to significantly improve our prospects. And really it's got to be noted, we are bucking the trend where we're seeing medical centres in the centre of town folding and getting bailed out.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we're actually able to. We've been attractive. We're still weathering storms, but we've now got a full complement of doctors at Dover. We're still working through issues at Geeveston, but we've managed to get a permanent doctor there, and are being supported by the Dover, our Dover doctors as well. So operationally, we're trying our best to minimise the impact on the general rate, and separately advocating above and beyond everything else we're doing at the moment to get that support we need.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yes, Councillor Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor. I think people probably should know too that Huon Valley Council is not a small council in its financial sustainability, and you know, we do have the childcare centre and we do have the medical services, which no other council really has to deal with quite as in-depthly as we have. And if we don't offer childcare services, you know, it will make it so much more difficult for us to continue to be sustainable because parents need to work. It's almost like we've come to this crux now where we have to really recognise what needs to happen irrespective of whether it's a council remit or not, and what we can lose out on but still remain focused and in touch with like-minded groups. But I just wanted to go back to the department and the workers who are no longer with us and thank them as much as everybody else has for their contribution, but also the fact that they've created this legacy. And when you look at the tourism figures from 2019 to now, the Huon Valley is right up there. So whether it's been our unit or just a connection with our unit to or the other, I don't know what you would call them, stakeholders, organisations, whatever, they've certainly got us on the map. And I think we are powerful now. So I think, you know that it's a testament to them. But going forward, trying to put people not in the equation, because you have to think of everybody, we do need to be more sustainable across the board generally, because there's a lot of people that need help and assistance, and people need doctors and people need childcare and people probably need things that we shouldn't be giving them, because the argument will now be we've removed this department but we still have medical service and childcare centres. Well, medical service and childcare centres are just something that needs to be provided for people on a general caring, nurturing, you know, if we don't have them, they won't be there and then nobody will have them. So if we can pick up, you know, the slack from not having this unit but still keeping connections, then it's almost like we've had to choose what we can keep and can't keep with a very low budget.
Yep.
So I hope people do understand that this hasn't been an easy choice.
I think they understand.
I hope so, because, you know, the tone of the emails has been that we don't care about people, but we do care about people. You know, it's not that we want to take things away from them, but we have to prioritise what overall is going to be in the best interests of the community.
Yeah, thank you.
So, you know, thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other? No? Do you wish to close? Okay. Well, I'll put that forward. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's correct. Thank you. That's all councillors. And the motion is carried. We have Neil and Neil. We're about to move into closed council, so I'd like to thank those in the gallery. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for attending, and those watching at home. The next ordinary meeting of council is on Wednesday the 26th of June at 6 p.m. 19.025/24, the recommendation that the meeting now be closed to the public at 6:54. Pursuant to Regulation 15 of the Meeting Procedures Regulations, to discuss the following matters: the proposed organisational restructure. Do I have a councillor to move into closed? Councillor Thorpe. A seconder? Councillor Burgess. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That's all councillors. And the motion is carried. I advise that in accordance with the Yuan Valley's audio recording of council meeting policy, recording of the open session of the special meeting ceased at